I'm responsible for all the sales, F&I, BDC content that we train here at the Academy in our virtual training network. I've spent 25 years in the automotive industry, done everything from salesperson to general manager and everything in this between, including a little bit of time in the service department and the body shop. And for the past 15 years, I have worked on the consulting and training side of the retail automotive industry.
Okay, Mr. Shaka Dyson. And by the way, all three of us are great personal friends. How you doing today, Shaka?
And we all have the same haircut.
Yeah, we do. I'm the only one with a hat.
I'm doing well, man. And you know, the first thing is you know, I appreciate being here, and especially being on a panel with two elite gentlemen like yourself, man. You know, it's a great honor for me to be here. My name is Shaka Dyson. I am one of two people that head up the F&I division for my automotive group, which is 33 stores, which is 60 plus F&I managers. And we're all over the country in Florida, Pennsylvania, a big presence here in Illinois, Missouri, and in Georgia as of recently. And we're steadily growing. I head up the F&I department for them. I've been doing this. I started selling cars in 99, and I spun my first deal for the Rohrman Automotive Group in 2001. I moved down to Atlanta in Jim Ziegler territory. I moved down in Atlanta in 2003 and worked with Rick Case all the way up until 2012 till I moved up here.
And that's an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to be here. But just a quick note, I apologize if anybody interrupts me. I am in a dealership right now, as you guys can see. I am in a store right now, in an F&I office right now. So I'll try not to get interrupted while I sit here with you guys.
Well, see, that's the deal. See, all three of us are working F&I managers as well as trainers. I mean, I've desk deals and done F&I as little as a month ago.
As I say, you still do it, don't you, Jim?
I hope you know why I still do F&I, why I still desk deals, because I can.
1,000%.
So many of my competitors can't.
Right, 1,000%.
Yeah. How many trainers have never been seen catching it up in front of witnesses?
What's that?
How many trainers have never been seen catching it up in front of witnesses?
I know. I feel the same way, man. And so, you know, here's the thing, man. There's a great quote in the movie, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. It says, a fisherman always sees another fisherman from afar. So we recognize each other. You know, I look at Jim Ziegler and I recognize greatness. You know, I know of Tony D and I recognize greatness. And I'm sure amongst all three of us, we know of and heard of these people who, you know, are probably pretty great people, but, you know, they don't know what they don't know. So if they pretend, well, you know, you got to let them pretend, man. But people who they're pretending to recognize, you know, the people who can really get out there and lead and really have the ability. You know, I can't tell you how many times I have a resume. I interviewed somebody this morning who came in with the resume. I wish I had it in front of me. That had that Jim, they went to your F&I samurai seminar, I think 10 years ago, and they had that written on their resume. And I said, hey, you know, Jim's a good friend of mine, you know, and this is true story, you know, or I can't tell you how many times I talked to somebody in F&I, either in my F&I 20 group or here in Chicago, or no matter where I go, and they'll know Tony D, you know, and they know the great work that he does and that he's done for a long time. So all three of us,
you
don't get there by
national figures. So all three of us are national figures, and I think we could probably spend the rest of this broadcast talking about our credentials. But let's get into something with some value for the people. Now, Tony, what is the biggest issue you're dealing with today in F&I training? What's the biggest deficit?
Understanding the compliance that we have to deal with.
Compliance.
You know, the amount of compliance, and it just keeps getting piled on, and the deficit is not, we certainly have the federal and state compliance, and most people are pretty good on that. But now we're starting to have to really get into best practices to almost safeguard ourselves as an industry. You know, what can we do to safeguard ourselves? Fair credit policies. Do we have to start putting on suggested retail pricing for F&I products. I'd be curious to know what Shaka, what you guys are doing for your group, if you're doing, if you've started doing that, having hard set numbers on pricing in your electronic menus. That's been a big deficit of people, or things that people don't necessarily know when they come into my F&I schools. Federal laws.
That's been the law, Tony. That's been the law for 20 years.
Right.
Now, the only thing that's different is we're starting to enforce it. What we're dealing with is called deceptive trade practices. And deceptive trade practices are state to state, loosely defined. But generally, if you do anything designed to trick the customer, deceptive trade practices come in three categories: prejudicial, discriminatory, and the other one is when you overprice something. What do you say? What's it called? What's price gouging? Predatory. You can't use predatory pricing. You can't use prejudicial pricing. You can't use discriminatory pricing. So believe it or not, there's only 2 states I know of that tell you have to price a service contract at a certain amount. That's going to be Florida and Wyoming. But you do have to have standardized pricing on your service contracts. Always have had. Now, the other 48 states are value option packages where whatever the customer will pay and the bank will finance is fair game on a service contract, for instance. But you've got to have the same starting price for all customers. You can negotiate down, but you cannot hit one customer because he's got bad credit or she has bad credit at $8,000 for a service contract and sell the same service contract to another customer, start the figure at $1,500. That is predatory pricing.
And we still see that. I was in a dealer group recently doing an assessment of what they're doing in the business office, and it was all over the place. And come to find out, they were working off of a cost up. And it was all the I think I feel method, as in, I think I can make 1,000 on this. I think I can make 500 on this.
Well, now we got Shaka sitting there with 33 stores. I'll guarantee you they're all over the place.
Well, how are you guys handling that, Shaka?
Yeah, so the way that we do it, man, is you have to be as blanket as possible. So I have guidelines. I've got guidelines for all of my products. I mean, of course, we have probably half of our products down in Florida, half of our companies in Florida, and half the products that we sell in F&I are state regulated in Florida.
State regulated.
However, across the board, we have guidelines. We have what like a vehicle has an MSRP out here on the showroom floor. I've got MSRPs for the products, and you're not to go over a certain MSRP. You have an MSRP and you have a cost, and those are the company guidelines. And you're not going to come in my company and you're not going to sell a edge policy for $1,500. It's not going to happen.
I have seen a $24,000 service contract.
That's a rogue F&I guy, and we don't want those.
Was it a Range Rover or a Jaguar?
No, it was a Hummer H1, and the cost on it was $8,000, and GMAC.
It's not gonna have a $24,000.
Yeah, this was Ron Carter Hummer in a suburb of Houston, and here we got Ron Carter Hummer. They saw, and GMAC's guideline was you could mark up a service contract 300%.
Mm-hmm.
So they had an $8,000 cost, and they sold the service contract for $24,000, which was one of the biggest F&I deals I ever saw, and I'm sure it was one of the biggest chargebacks in history.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure, and those type of business practices. I'm glad you guys brought that up first, but those type of business practices are the biggest liabilities. Like what Tony said, those are the biggest liabilities that can face an F&I office, let alone the perception that it gives the F&I department about us being snake oil salesmen and not being ethical and things of that nature. So,
right, because we've got consumers probably going to wander into this broadcast. I mean, nothing is secret, but understand we're going to have people that are not in the car business watching this broadcast, and I want it to be transparent and open. That we sell these products and we make a profit. That's fair, but gouging, which is predatory pricing,
can't do it.
And we all know what discriminatory is: race, religion, sex, marital status. You all know the discriminatory subjects.
Sure.
Prejudicial, but prejudicial is the third category of deceptive trade practices. Prejudicial is when I have a person that I deliberately overcharge because they had poor credit. And that is what the CFPB is looking at right now.
Sure.
The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau is all over discriminatory.
Sure.
Discriminatory practices.
And here's the thing, too. If you're let me talk to my F&I people out there. If you're one of those who still practice those methods, it's a new day. It's a new age. And in reality, we in the modern era don't consider those types of practices legitimate. And also, if you're not taking your career and your ability to the next level, then you will soon find that you're not legitimate if you're still practicing those old methods. We got to be consumer friendly. Our products have value. I believe in the value of the products. I buy service contracts on my own vehicles, and I believe in GAP. If you're in a GAP situation, GAP is probably the most valuable product we sell today. It actually has greater value for a consumer than a service contract. Payouts higher, and if you need it, it'll prevent a catastrophic disruption in your life. Sure.
A service contract might cover $2,000, $3,000 engine repair, but a GAP claim is usually going to be north of $7,000.
And something else, just very recently, my personal vehicle recently got totaled. And when I brought the vehicle to the body shop, or when the tow truck dropped it off, and the guy looked at me and he goes, "They're going to total the car. They're going to total the car." I said, No. I said, one, I don't want it totaled, but two, why are you saying that? And what I had a body shop manager tell me is that they're seeing a lot of vehicles, especially like Chrysler 300s, Malibus, Impalas, Chrysler 200, Ford F-150 pickup trucks, that the insurance companies are now totaling out with as low as $5,000 worth of damage, because the vehicles themselves are worth more in the sum of their parts than as a rolling vehicle, because the cost of products, or the cost of the repairs, or the cost of the electronics and all the different pieces are so high. The insurance companies are totaling out the vehicles, selling them at auction, making money on them. That's a GAP close, and there's a service contract close in there too.
Yeah, because the insurance companies are doing what's best for them, for sure. So you're absolutely right.
Well, I've got to tell you, I've got a great GAP close.
Come on.
I mean, you just brought it up, and I made this up. I know some other F&I schools started teaching it, but I've been teaching it in my school now for about 5 years. If the consumer says, "Well, I can buy GAP from my insurance company," I said, "Well, why would you create a conflict of interest for State Farm?"
Right.
Because if it came down to they had your GAP policy and your primary insurance, and they had to make a decision on whether or not to total the car or pay the higher GAP claim, they might be forced to repair an unsafe car and put your family back in it.
That's right.
How about that? What do you think, Shaka?
1,000%. It's 1,000% correct, man. That's one of the things I love about you, man, is that you have that you've got a lot of closes that are reality. It's the same thing that I teach, in my stores. That they're reality closes. A lot of schools, and I'm sure Tony knows this of other schools, but lots of schools, man, they teach these cookie cutter best case scenario closes that have been around for ages, man, and customers can see right through that. So closes like that one that you just gave is a reality. Who wants to drive around in a car that's broken?
If we're going to bounce around some stuff, something I started toying with, it was actually at a dealership, and I wasn't taking the turn solo. I was there with a business manager, and the customer came in, and they were all about their credit, and they literally were taking that the credit.com attitude in the dealership. I got a 740 credit score, and I know this.
Right.
And they started going with that. And I said, "So obviously protecting your credit is really important to you, right?" And they said, "Yeah, right." So we kind of gathered some additional information. And then I kind of took over the menu presentation, and I slid into on GAP. I'm like, "Well, you earlier said that protecting your credit was so important. Not only will these other products protect your credit, but most importantly, the GAP's going to protect your credit." So it turned into, I don't really know, that's not really something I'll teach at a school, but that's a cool thing for an objection handling, or just another way to be able to present GAP in a positive manner when you get that I got a certain credit score and they think they deserve something. Right. They deserve GAAP.
Sure, 1,000%, and that's reality too, because GAAP
Right.
does protect your credit. So that's a great point, Tony. That's 1,000%, man. So, you know, that's obviously what separates you from a lot of people out there, man, for sure.
You ready? Are you ready?
I'd like to say hi to Sean McCool with ITAP, who just signed on.
Sean's a good friend.
Yeah, good guy.
I was with him here about 2 weeks ago, and I'm doing my next F&I seminar in Indianapolis, and the ITAP menu guys are going to be helping me facilitate it.
You know what's funny is Sean was my bank rep 12 years ago when I was F&I in Indianapolis. I've known Sean for 12 years. What's up, Sean? What's up, champion? I've known him for 12 years. Yeah, back in Indianapolis.
Yeah, are you ready? Are you guys ready? I got a story. I got to tell you. Hey, okay, I was just last week. I was at Preston Superstore in Burton, Ohio.
Yeah.
Now that's Amish country. I mean, this is a little Mayberry-esque dealership, way 40 miles out of Cleveland, if you can picture.
Yeah.
Amish community. So I'm at Preston Superstore about 3 years ago. Now the F&I manager's name is Wally. And Wally goes through all this little pre-rehearsed, sound like cookie cutter you said earlier. You know, he's got this pre-rehearsed stuff he learned in a school in South Florida.
Yeah.
So anyway, and the woman said, look, I don't want any of that. I don't need any of that. And I'm sitting behind him, and I'm trying to be a little inconspicuous, but I'm wearing a suit and a baseball hat, so she knows I'm a little different. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, let me ask you a question. This is one of my best closes, one of the best ones. You ready? You ready? Mm-hmm. I said, ma'am, let me ask you a question. I can see you don't need the environmental package, your car's garage, but do you have $25 in your purse right now? And she said, well, certainly. I said, 3 days from now, I'll bet you won't know what happened to that $25. That's insignificant money. You probably give it to your grandkids to put in a video machine at Chuck E. Cheese's.
Yeah.
What, you going to fly there, son? I said, that's insignificant money. You're going to give that money to your kids to put in a video machine at Chuck E. Cheese's. Now, do you have $7,500 in fluid cash laying around? She said, no, I don't. I said, I know you don't because you had trouble with the down payment. I said, so in other words, if you had a $7,500 gap claim, that's about the average of what we're seeing, it would be a disruption and a catastrophe in your life. She said, yeah, you have to sell something or borrow something. I said, you know, and here's the word track, as opposed to a small, known, manageable amount that you can handle, much less than $25. Mm-hmm. And it's small, it's known, and it's insignificant money, the kind of money you give your kids to put in the video machines at Chuck E. Cheese's. But $7,500 would certainly disrupt and be a catastrophe in your life. She said, yes. And her husband said something. I said, I think we ought to take that.
Nice.
Variable payment versus fixed payment. What's easier for you to make? A payment of $585 where the vehicle is going to be fixed and your credit's protected and the maintenance is done, or a $500 payment with, oh, wait a second, with repair, make that a $1,400 payment 1 month when you're not expecting it. Always seems to happen, you know, around Christmas, birthdays, anniversary.
What other situations? We started out with legalities. That's what I love about this blab. We're just taking this wherever it goes. You know, what other legalities are you dealing with, Shaka, Tony?
Well, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
A lot of seeing a lot of confusion in some of the languages. You know, you were talking like the CFPB. You know, we're at a point now that we don't necessarily know who's sitting in our office. One of the questions I ask my F&I students, how many of you have a camera with you? Who has a video camera? Everybody's got one of these. Mm-hmm. And if they start recording a transaction, even in this hadn't turned into an issue yet, but something that's got me a little scared is even in the language that business managers present products, saying things like, again, we were talking about GAAP, saying things that GAAP will pay a deficiency. GAAP may cover a deficiency. And we almost have to start almost concerning ourselves with these absolutes in the wording that we're using when even disclosing the products. Because again, I had somebody probably 3 weeks ago tell me that the customer came in with their phone, put it up on one of those I'm not going to say a selfie stick, but this little stand that said, I'm going to record the transaction, hit play or hit record, and recorded the entire F&I transaction. Business manager called me instantly when they were done. And I was like, how'd you do? They said, I wanted to watch it, but we're starting to get this. And what are they going to do? They're going to take this and send it to Fox on Your Side or 60 Minutes or Dateline. I'd love for these people to come in here and listen to us be transparent and how to do it good, ethical. But something that has me a little bit concerned is in some of the specific wording of how business managers are describing the products and not intentionally or with no malice overstating what sometimes the products may or may not do. Shaka, you got a deal? Come on, let's work a deal, man. Let's work a deal live. You take a video turn.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, one of the biggest illegalities I'm seeing in dealerships today is power booking.
Oh.
And power booking for those that aren't onto it is misrepresenting the price of the car, misrepresenting the equipment on the car, misrepresenting the trade-in, or misrepresenting the customer's income to the financial institution. Now, used to be if the bank caught you power booking, they just basically told the dealer you paid the car off and they slapped you on the wrist. But today, as of 2012, the federal government says if that bank is a federally insured institution, the bank must turn you into the F&I as a criminal. Must.
Wasn't there something in
I'm about to get
Georgia
there.
about this recently?
No, it was in Alabama. It was in
Alabama. Okay.
It was Sarah Nissan. And long story short, I was consulting Sarah Nissan before this happened, and the manager stonewalled me and sort of ran me out of there. And I didn't know why, because I was looking at everything. And two managers went to prison in that dealership, and the dealer partner went to prison for another matter. I mean,
power booking almost runs into the same thing that was happening in the real estate market back in 05, 6, 7, 8. That destroyed the real estate market, where they were overinflating the value of the houses and doing I was going to say reinsurance, but doing the refis.
Oh man, when they started putting F&I managers in jail, I personally don't want to be the bride of Big Bubba. Yeah.
No, that's something that's been rampant for years and years and years now. I mean, I think both of you guys probably remember Denny Hecker up in Minnesota, and if you go up to Minnesota, he still got barbed wire fences up around his dealership. And not only did Denny Hecker, the owner of Denny Hecker Automotive Group, go to prison, and I think he got sentenced to 15 years, but many people in his stores did. Compliance has got to be the priority. But here's the good news is that not only do we have 80 million millennials coming into the buying market, but more and more people that I'm interviewing every day for an F&I position fall into that category as well. And that's what I love, because outside of compliance being a major issue nowadays for the F&I department, another one that I face specifically because I do so much interviewing for my group is the been in the business mentality. Everybody's been in the business for 25 or 30 years, and they keep the same mentality throughout the entire length of time of their career. And I often tell people, these new millennials don't care how you did it back in 92. They don't care how things were done in 89. This is 2015, where everything is transparent now, that they can walk in here with their cell phones and their iPads, and they can tell you exactly what you're going to do before you do it. They're the ones that sat in an F&I office the last 3 times that their parents were delivered by a finance manager. So they already know. So the been in the business mentality of not being transparent, the been in the business mentality of not fully disclosing, of having guidelines. There is a right way and a complete wrong way to do F&I. And here's the great news. They're both equally as profitable.
You don't have to lie,
so there's no reason
sneak,
to not
deceive,
approach
or misrepresent to do our business. And we're great examples of that. If I think somebody's a criminal, I'll run them out of the car business. I personally will persecute them.
Yep.
Now, are you seeing, and again, we may all have different opinions on this, but do you see when dealerships, and let's just stick with F&I, when they're doing something illegal, do you do you see more people doing it maliciously, doing it intentionally, or are they just doing it because they don't know any better? Because that's just what they learned from their previous manager.
Tony, both. I mean, ignorance.
I haven't. Go ahead, Jim.
A lot of it's done at the sales desk, and we take the blame for it at the F&I desk. I mean, a lot of it's coming from misrepresentation on the showroom floor. Once again, ignorance, lack of training, or malicious. Now, if somebody's maliciously abusing a customer, maliciously lying to a customer, I mean, I have no second chance on that. I will fire them with a bad reference. If I even find out they're getting a job, I'll make a phone call. You ever see somebody on a street corner or an exit ramp with a cardboard sign? That was an F&I manager I got pissed at.
Hey, by the way, for all of our viewers, if you look over on the right-hand side, you'll see the tweets going on. If you have a question, put in a / and a Q. It'll flag it as a question, and you can ask a question to the group. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. We're doing F&I stuff, but I think if it's automotive related, I think we'll certainly try to handle it, especially from the F&I perspective.
And we got experts in the audience. Hey, Cribs, are you there? Just hit the send message.
Yeah, a couple of shout outs. Kevster, 1 mil, what's going on, champion? Foundation to Win, what's happening, man? Sean McCool, you always love what's going on. Big ITAP, big dog. Ed Brooks, I see you on here. But Tony, to give my perspective too, man, in the question you just asked, I'm like Jim. I see a mixture of both, but I probably see more. I see it more happening, more on the malicious side than the ignorance or naive side. I think that there's enough forums to educate people on the compliant aspect and doing it the right way and taking the right approach. I think that there's enough resources out there that and education out there that a person can educate themselves. I mean, that's a big portion of these schools nowadays, and the school that they go to at your school, I'm sure that's a big portion of it. But when they do it, typically it's because, well, this is the way I've always done it, or they do it and they do it because they can get away with it or until they get caught. So, however, the great news is that leaders in this business and new F&I managers in this business and people who are taking charge in this business are changing the dynamic and the perception of F&I. And the only thing that will be the same in F&I from the F&I today, from F&I 10 years ago, will be the title F&I. That'll be it.
Cribs, wrong
Everything
haircut,
else
buddy.
will change about this business.
Hey, how are you, Shaka?
David
Nice to
Cribs,
see ya.
what's up, big dog?
Tony, just spent some
Good,
time a couple days ago with Matt over here at the office. Good to see him too.
Yeah, very cool. Glad he was able to come over and say hey to you guys.
Yeah, it was good interaction. You guys are doing a great job. I love the conversation that you guys are having. You guys are all pros.
Now, by the way, David is with Auto Dealer Live, and he's also one of the fantastic sales management trainer, and also a good friend. Glad you're here, man.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you. Humbled.
Yeah, man. I see you all over. Facebook, man.
Power
I'm checking you out. I'm
booking,
like, David Cribs, go ahead, man.
We're talking about that. Falsifying a credit application is still probably more prosecutions on that in the last 2 years. There's more. If I'm an F&I manager and I'm going to be holding the bag on what I submit to the banks, I was in Wisconsin and I was in a dealership not long ago that has a lot of stores out of Milwaukee, and one of the sales managers was putting a deal in Dealer Track, and I watched him moonroof wheels. I mean, he was loading this vehicle up with stuff it didn't have, and I told the dealer about it, and the dealer fired somebody. Me.
Wow.
Hey, I see a question here. I think it'd be kind of cool to kind of get some opinions on, and I certainly have one. It says, because of the lack of trust of some consumers, have you seen a dramatic increase in buyers with pre-approved loans? In the stores that I work with and the business managers that I see here at the Academy, we are overall seeing a higher increase, yes, of people walking in with pre-approved loans. However, in my opinion, it's not because of a lack of trust of the dealership and the business manager. It's because the customer wants to know all the information before they walk into the store. They've already figured out how much the car should cost them. They have already figured out what the trade should run them. They already know the equipment they want on the vehicle because they walk in and ask for a specific stock number. The one missing piece so many customers have in the purchase of their vehicle is the interest rate. Once they know the rate, they can calculate out the payment. They like to do that at home. The dealership's not willing to give it to them. The dealership's not willing to even say what their average interest rate is. They always work off of, well, I don't know, come on in, fill out an application. So a lot of customers are going to their own bank credit union, getting pre-approved, showing up into the dealership. However, that is a beautiful opportunity to be able to convert them into our financing. We can typically beat their interest rate, and we can utilize their pre-approval a lot of times as leverage. So be curious on some of the other opinions on that one.
Well, I agree with most of what you just said, especially the it's not because of the lack of mistrust. I think it has a lot to do with the availability of these banks and the availability of online banking and them able to go online and the accessibility to the consumer now to go on and do a lot more stuff on their own that they used to need us to do for them. I think that has a big thing to do, something big to do with consumers coming in with their own loans. Now, as far as their mistrust, I will tell you what I have seen a lot of. Consumers are a lot more aware now of things that they weren't aware of before, so they're a lot more cautious now. They come in with a lot more printouts now, and Susie Orman means that much more to them now. And the Dave Ramseys of the world mean that much more to these people who walk in now. This is in my stores or around the country. So the approach from the customer is a lot more cautious. And so I teach my F&I guys that you have to roll out the red carpet for customers, and you have to meet their cautiousness with transparency and disclosure. Because listen, in F&I, this is an F&I tip for everybody out there. A customer will always meet your level of resistance. Period. Hands down in F&I. So if you are resistant to disclose information to a customer, then they're going to be resistant, that much resistant or more to do business with you, or that much more resistant to listening to what you have to say if you're resistant. So, in the transaction, you've got to be the professional. They're the ones that are doing business with you who have decided to do business with you. So you have to be the professional. And now you have to step up and you have to understand their approach, which is a cautious one. And you have to answer questions, cross T's, dot I's, and do as much as you can to help that consumer.
I agree with that.
And in the end, it's going to pay off in
pre-approved
results for you.
The other thing is consumers' credit scores are now readily available. They know what they qualify for, which at one time, how many times somebody come in and say, what kind of a loan do I qualify for? And we all know different people qualify for different financial programs depending on their personal credit and the amount of their down payment. But now consumers, there's a certain percentage of consumers that we used to have slang words, we called these people, but today we're credit challenged, equity impaired, people that have credit issues. And a lot of these people work in the system. I mean, they're working the system. When online loans first came out, Green Tree and some of those loans, everybody thought, that's the end of finance. Yeah. But guess what? The only people trying to get the online loans were the people with bad credit trying to trick the computer. It didn't fly. It's never going to be mainstream where the majority of customers are coming in pre-approved. It's like hybrid automobiles. There's a market for hybrid, but not everybody's a hybrid customer. My God, James Bond is never going to show up in a Prius. Not going to happen.
Prius if they did. Hey, I got a question for Dave. Right. I was not able to attend Digital Dealer last week, and I know you guys are doing a lot of cool stuff out there. Was there any F&I talk out at DD? You know, there's a lot of other things that go on, but you know, looking at the agenda, I didn't see a lot of F&I really even addressed.
Yeah, I didn't see any whatsoever, Tony. Not to say that there wasn't some talk of F&I there, but I didn't see any as a part of, you know, what I took part in. I would like to share, you know, there's a few things that I heard here today that I think are really important. One was, I think Shaka was just talking about the fact that, you know, in the finance office that we need to be a little more informational, a little more transparent, a little more clear, maybe articulate with the customer so that they can really understand and clarify, because the business office is arguably the place of more caution now than even the sales floor. Because people understand a little bit more, just enough to be dangerous.
Sure.
In the finance office. So I think that's really important. Something that you hit on as well, Tony, with the pre-approvals and you know, converting the customer with rate. I think something that might be beneficial there is more emphasis on finance interaction with the desk. I think that, you know, too often we see separate departments here, and this needs to be, thank you guys. This needs to be a match made in heaven. I mean, we can benefit them, they can benefit us, and we can keep ourselves from not being liable.
I believe that in the next 10 years, all sales will be completely menu driven, all sales.
I agree.
And I believe it'll come from the sales desk, and the F&I transaction and the sales transaction will be one transaction. And F&I managers are more likely to inherit the industry because 90 whatever percentages of deals are based on the payment and the finance, not on the price of the car.
Yep.
People are buying a car based on the finance. And who's best prepared to inherit the industry? The F&I managers or the sales managers? No. Yeah, and you got the sales managers. Most sales managers learn their job by watching somebody get fired. You know, I mean, there's very few sales manager schools. I teach one of the very few out there that sales manager schools. There's dozens of F&I schools. We have more skills, more schools, more specialized training than anybody in the dealership, except technicians that turn the wrenches. I mean, we are the most highly trained people in the dealership other than technicians. So we are going to inherit the industry.
Hey, let me add on to a great point that David made about bridging that gap from the desk to F&I. In adding to that point, for all F&I departments and all F&I managers out there, don't wait for the desk to reach out. Make it your job. Make it your duty. Make it your obligation for you to reach out in your store. You work on bridging that gap. Don't worry about them. You work on doing it by staying up at the desk as much as you can, by doing everything that you can to be the right hand of a sales manager. And when they're busy, doing everything that you can to fill that sales management role up there and assisting them. So you take it upon yourself, no matter how much resistance they give you.
I'm going to tell you right now,
take it upon yourself to bridge that gap. Don't wait for it to be the other way around.
Business managers do need to be more proactive. Most are reactive. They just, whatever they send them, it's a good deal, it's a bad deal, it's a cash deal, the check's already filled out. They're always reactive. Being proactive, sitting at the desk. Now, what do you guys, you know, the traditional track in management was, you know, salesperson, senior salesperson, maybe a closer, sales manager, assistant sales manager, then to F&I, then to GSM, to GM. Do you guys endorse, because I do, of the desk came through the business office, came through F&I, then the desk? What's your thoughts on that? Okay.
You're not even qualified to be a desk manager if you haven't done it.
I don't even have to think about it. 1,000%, man. I think, you know, so if it were me and I was talking to a GM yesterday in one of my stores, and if I took over a store right now, today, right after we hung up on this call, the first move I would do is I would take the sales desk, if they didn't have any F&I background, and I would I would transition them into a role that's better suited for them, but not on the desk. And what I would also do is I would take the F&I department and I would immediately promote them, my F&I team, to the desk. And then I would immediately take some of my salespeople, whoever wants to get into F&I, who's ever hungry and passionate, and I would take them and immediately put them in the F&I. And I would immediately train them how to do F&I in today's world, the modern world. So I would have my entire staff of management with
we had a question
either doing F&I or a strong F&I background.
I don't see it on the side. Maybe
what about leg?
The one about leg. One of the people asked about $50, $60 a month in leg. Leg is illegal. Let's just put it where it is. I mean, we've talked about, and back in the day, and I've been in the business since 1976. I've got underwear older than everybody else in this broadcast.
You original gangster, man.
Yeah, what can I say? But, and I've seen all the changes. I've moved and I've evolved with the changes. And, my good friend Jackie Cooper passed away. And one thing, when Jackie Cooper passed away, he never rewrote the book. And I made a commitment that when I became a trainer, I would constantly learn new things and do new things. And leg is illegal. In the day, we would throw it in the deal. We'd quote a payment 3 times the sales price, but that is illegal today. It's been illegal for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Now, in most states, you can give a customer a $10 payment spread. The state attorney generals have called that based on a spread. You can give them a $10, except the state of Washington,
based on a rate spread
to $5. Yeah. You can remember all the anti-F&I legislation started in the state of Washington with the state attorney general Christine Gregoire.
01,
yeah,
2000, 99, 2000, 01.
99, 2000, they prosecuted all those dealerships, and she invented the term payment packing.
And the providers and the trainers.
Oh, yeah, and that when I started putting F&I trainers in jail, I started paying attention. Yes. Yeah, that's when I really started saying, I better rethink all this.
Yeah, makes sense.
And, at that point, you could do a $10 spread. And I want a $10 spread coming off the sales desk. Your monthly investment is going to be 60 equal distinct payments, somewhere between $511 and $521, depending on your personal credit. That's the word track. Depending on your down payment, your personal credit, your monthly investment is going to be 60 equal distinct payments, $561 to $571, depending on your personal credit. As you know, different people qualify for different financial programs. Depends on your personal credit history and the amount of your down payment. That's the word tracks we're teaching.
Let's go the other way around here for a second. And I actually got it. Hold on.
What, you got a Foursquare?
I got a grid pencil here that the customer closed. This is on a lease, closed at 36 at 429. Reading the contract. Now this was on an audit or an assessment I was doing. Reading the contract, it was $500 down. Base payment was $429. Now that's not bad, but this deal went in $6 underwater. What kind of chance does F&I have if the deals are going in underwater? What's y'all's suggestion on handling that? Again, from a business manager, maybe working with the desk, or is that just, again, like we were talking about, business manager needs to stay up there with the sales managers and work the deals and pay attention?
Yeah. So Tony, if I could start to answer that question, in any scenario, that needs to be a one-off. That needs to happen every now and again. No penciling system will ever be perfect 100% of the time, but that needs to be a one-off. And the way that the F&I department can take responsibility for ensuring that that's not the norm is exactly what you just said. It's built and exactly what David said earlier. It's building that bridge to the sales desk, and in addition to that, making your presence known out on the showroom floor, making your presence felt by all of the salespeople, by making your presence felt up there at the sales desk. And if there is ever a question and the sales manager feels like they don't have it down to a T, then F&I, you need to make it a process or a policy that the second a doubt comes in their mind, they get you, that they reach out to you, that they call you back in your office, or they paid you over the intercom. But F&I, you have to become the go-to people in your dealership when they're working deals. That's how you put a stop to that type of thing happening. Like Mr. Williams 3, he asked, what happens when the desk closes based on a low rate, then the customer doesn't qualify? I currently close and bump. Is that the way to do it? ? Well, that is the way to do it. I mean, that is a way to do it, but there are also better alternative ways to do it that are better as well. And that, Mr. Williams, is making your presence felt. Man, that needs to be your showroom and your sales desk that just happens to have salespeople that work in it, and that just happens to have sales managers that work in it. Because just imagine this, Mr. Williams. What if you had total control of every deal that was worked out in your showroom? What if you had total control? How would that desking process look then? So the more you make your presence felt out there, and the more you show up at the sales desk and help them, the more control they will give you, and the less
Tony,
pencils will come into your offices underwater. That's just my two cents.
Just hold it up to the camera one time. Now that worksheet's a grid, isn't it?
That's a grid
with a whole bunch of different payments and down payments, right?
This is a grid, no lease, 48, 60, 72, and then flip to a lease on the bottom.
Yeah, and it's got different
down payment.
Grids don't work. Grids don't work. And I've said that because if you look, the customer didn't select anything on the grid. They had to write them. I see these grids with all these zero down payment, all these different options. The customers never take any of the options ever. Grids don't work.
These were created from what I've seen. This is my ADD kicking in, by the way. What I've seen is a lot of this was created by the technology companies, not retail automotive
the
professional
CRM companies.
Right. And
they never desked a deal in their life.
This is work to the pencil, and it didn't even, I don't know what system this is out of, but it doesn't even allow for a $5, $7, $9 spread. And technically, it's to the penny without an APR on it.
All the technology companies are trying to tell us how to desk deals, and they haven't got a clue.
Right.
Now, my forms are available on my website for free. All my forms are free. I released the copyright. I used to sell $30,000 a month in forms. But now with CRMs, I just said, heck with it. I released the copyright. You go to Alpha Dog blog, and you can download all my forms. BAWG, Alpha Dog blog. And you can download my forms for free. I don't charge anything. And I've got the scripted worksheet with the right figures and total legal compliance.
Now, I know, Dave, you do a lot of desking, sales management work. Come on, what you got here, dude?
Well, I hate all that grid stuff. First of all, look, what that's going to do is it's going to take the customer's going to see that it's too much to process for the customer. It's too much to figure out. They're probably thinking we're going to take them a different direction. And what it forces the customer to do is go back to where they ideally would like to be. And we know that's going to be low, right? So I don't like that at all. And another thing, just we talked about bridging the gap, and we talked about the finance manager getting involved early. Look, if I'm a finance manager, from a selfish standpoint, I want to be involved early, right? It's just like the success that we're seeing with the reverse TO,
Sure.
A manager getting involved early. I want to begin to set the stage. I don't want the customer ideally, I don't want the customer to meet me for the first time when they're being introduced at my office, if I can help that. And going back to being out there on the floor, when you're out there on the floor and you're proactive in going in on a deal, you're going to become the desk manager's best friend, because now he's got another experienced closer, and he's got someone now that is coming out of the F&I office, that if they're talking to the customer and setting up the customer, the desk manager can't be blamed for what goes wrong in the finance office at that point. So it can be a very mutually beneficial relationship. I think we need to see more of it.
%1,000%, man. Hey, so here's a question right here from P Laya Kakos. Oh, Ben, no, please forgive me if I get that wrong. But it says, what tool do you suggest to present payments? Hey, I apologize if I got that wrong, man. People mispronounce Shaka all the time, so I apologize. But hey, David, so why don't you answer that, man? It says, what tool do you suggest to present these payments? Which
I got
tool
to
do you
tell
like
you,
best?
maybe I'm old school, but I like a simple Foursquare. I love the forms that Jim Ziegler prints out. Ultimately, I think that there are only a few things that we have to address, right? We have to address price, we have to address trade, we have to address down payment, and we have to address payments. And I don't think it takes a huge tactical menu system to make that happen, in my opinion. So I like to keep it simple.
With regards to penciling a deal, in fact, Jim and I were talking yesterday on the phone. Like my favorite thing to do in a dealership is rehash deals from an F&I standpoint. Number 2 would be working car deals. Number 3 would actually be more of an F&I transaction with the customer. One of the things I really like about the industry and being kind of forward thinking, as we all are, is working with today's updated customers, the Gen Y customers. And I do personally find a good deal of validity to a electronically produced, something that looks very official, very matter of fact. It doesn't look like, don't get me wrong, baby, I will work this all day long. I can go through all the benefits of cash and move it up and move it down and move it out. But I do find with a lot of the dealerships that I work with, especially Asian import stuff, Honda, Subaru, in our Highline domestics, is the customers do respond to something that's printed. But again, having the right system out there that will allow for payment spread and average rate, Shaka, like you brought up earlier, that gives F&I a shot. There's a lot of validity to that I do find a lot of today's customers do respond well to, as opposed to old school Foursquare. The flip side is, man, this may sound wrong, but I go to a rural domestic store, does a lot of trucks, all day long, man. This is one of the best things out there. Being pre-printed or on a tablet doesn't do a lot of good. So that's my thought on that, and it also helps with F&I as we move on.
Yeah,
Yep, and to your point, to all of you guys' point, statistics show that customers trust printed data more than they trust written data. So if not for nothing, we could print out what we would generally, mark with a marker anyway, because they people generally trust printed data for, like, I can tell a customer in my F&I office, like I'm sitting in the F&I office right now, and I can tell a customer in here in the F&I office that your payment is this, your rate is this, your amount of finance is this. That holds some weight, but it's a lot different than if I whip around the screen and I show them exactly what their payment is, what their rate is, what their advance is, what their term is. It's a different approach to it, because you're more trustworthy, you have more credibility. That's what statistics show.
I just looked. I found it in the fine print. It's right here. This is UCS copyright 2005.
Okay, we got 7 minutes, guys. So
I got that yesterday.
Yeah, we got 7 minutes till the end of the show. We're going to end promptly at 3. David, start us off. We're coming in for a landing. Fasten your seatbelts. What was the last thing you want to say to people?
Okay, I think when we were just talking about the different desking tools, I think one of the most important things that we can focus on as a desk manager when it comes to desking a deal is how our people deliver that message to the customer when they sit, whatever tool they take, when they sit in front of that customer, because whether it's a Foursquare, an e-pencil, a menu system, whatever form you're using or whatever tool, make certain that your people are delivering it to the customer in the proper way. And Jim, you mentioned Jackie Cooper earlier. I went to, he was a big influence early in my career. I went to several of his seminars, and one thing that Jackie would always do and I used to do this on the desk every day, was have my salesperson deliver what they were going to deliver to me before they walked in and delivered it to the customer.
Part of my system is to rehearse the salesperson. Say back to me what you're going to say to the customer. I didn't like your facial expression, didn't like your voice tone. And another thing, at the sales desk, I don't need a bunch of clowns and fools and jokers hanging around distracting the man and woman I got in front of me. This is a sacred experience. If you haven't got business at the sales desk, get away from the sales desk.
I 100% agree. That is not the hangout spot. And another thing I'll say, and I'll be done, is that if you're a sales manager and you have someone and you know that they can't deliver that message properly, get up off that lazy boy that's behind that desk and go out there and deliver it. Show them how to deliver it.
Managers manage by walking around. But managers are like sharks that never stop swimming. We're constantly in motion. Shaka, what's the last thing you want to say to this group?
For everybody in the group here, this is a quote that one of the quotes that I live by, and in many motivational speeches that people will see video of mine, I say this quote. It's by Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said, "If I knew I had 15 minutes to chop down that tree, I would spend 14 minutes of it sharpening my axe." And the concept of that quote is, listen, us in F&I, and in a broader sense, us in the showroom selling the cars, or us up there desking the deals, we have to constantly be sharpening our axe. We have to constantly be getting better, doing whatever it takes to train and to get better. Remember, the transaction ain't but that amount of time. You spend an average of maybe 3-4 hours penciling deals. You spend an average of maybe a couple of hours in the sell of the deal, and 45 minutes back in F&I. But you have a long time in between each transaction to train. You have night times to train. Some regions, the dealerships are closed on Sunday. Use that time to better yourself and to elevate your career. You can never train too much. You can never do too much to become successful and to become better. So again, 15 minutes to chop down that tree. I'm definitely spending 14 minutes sharpening my axe, and I encourage you guys to do the same thing.
More substance. How about a contract disclosure? Mr. Business Customer, this is your retail installment sales contract. I'd like for you to take it and review it after they take physical possession of it. You can see right here, you have 72 payments, 746, first payment due on this date. This is all of your information as the buyer, and our information as the seller on your brand new vehicle listed here. This shows your APR, your finance charge, your amount finance, your total of payments, and your total down payment, or your total of payments including no down payment. This is a full itemization of amount finance showing your sales price plus tactile and license, your service contract, and your gap, which again puts you at 72 months, 746, first payment due here, signed here, and here.
Boom, drop the mic. I think we have had a really good first time out. I mean, this is the first blab we've ever done, guys.
We ought to do this more often.
We're going to do it more often. I mean, I am going to be scheduling blabs a lot. And, when a customer comes in the finance office, the first thing I do is, Mr. Customer, the sales manager tells me you've agreed to these figures at this rate, 60 equal distinct payments. And let me assure you, you can buy the car for that. You can buy the car for that. And I love your disclosure. Mine's slightly different. Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, sit up. I've got some disclosure here. I have before me John Q. Jenkins and Sarah P. Jenkins. I always start off with, I have before me, like a bailiff in a court, and the old man sits up there, oh, he's doing some legal shit. Okay, I have before me John Q. Jenkins and Sarah P. Jenkins, at 4271 Southwood Terrace, Norcross, Gwinnett County, Georgia, 30260. Purchasing a new Nissan from Stovall Nissan, South Lake Mall, Moore, Clayton County, Georgia, 30260. A new 2018 Nissan Maxima 4-door bearing this 17-digit serial number for your personal use. You may not use this vehicle for agriculture. I have not checked off agriculture. If you're caught farming in your Maxima, we will repossess it. Now, you got 60 equal distinct payments of $683.19 beginning on this date. And as we discussed previously, that includes enrollment in the 6-year, 100,000-mile parts and labor program and your gap protection and your environmental package Iowa blend. I'm going to need your signature in several places. And notice, as we discussed previously, that does include enrollment in the 6-year one. See, especially in Florida. Now, Shaka, you got a lot of stores in Florida, right? You've got more. You got a bunch of first-time buyers, but you've probably got more last-time buyers in Florida. Older people, older people don't buy contracts.
I got a mix,
but they love to enroll in programs. Yeah, well, but they don't like to buy a contract.
Different objectives to contract, yes.
So I enroll them in our parts and labor program. It's all in the words you say. Well, listen, guys, I am so pleased we all are here. We're exactly 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Everybody tweet about the Alpha Dog blog. I've gone ahead and we'll pause the recording.
Jim, where can they find this afterwards? Can they go on here and find this whole thing after?
I'm turning off the recording. We have paused the recording. We're off. Now I just figure out how to do it. Thanks for showing up, guys. And audience, I think we did it. Thank you. Ed Brooks said we did a nice job. Ed's a good friend of mine. He is a communist. But, okay, guys, we'll go home. I'm going to figure out how to do something. Hey, Carlos Garcia, are you still out there? Carlos, I just recorded this whole thing. What do I do with it?
It still shows recording on my end, Jim.
I've got recording paused right now.
Okay. Or maybe
I've got recording paused. Replay will be available in Jim's profile, and he will get a link and an MPG4. Okay, very good. Okay, well, let's get off this broadcast. It will appear in my profile automatically. No problem. Take care, guys.
All right. Y'all take it easy. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, see you.